Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Making Decisions Based on Customer Insight digital event, hosted by Jo Dalal, who sits on the CMI Women Network Committee, as well as a Senior Fellow of Advanced Higher Education. My name is Mel, I'm an events coordinator here at CMI, and I'll shortly be handing over to Jo to begin this afternoon's event. If you have any questions during the session, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can. Today's session is being recorded and it will be shared later on today, as well as a PDF copy of the slides for those who have booked to attend. And will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Jo to begin.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. And a huge welcome to all of you who are joining us this afternoon. I believe well over 300 people, so that's fantastic. But you will have a fantastic afternoon and you will learn a lot when Robin starts to speak. I'm delighted to be joined by Robin this afternoon, who is a senior lecturer in marketing in the Institute of Business, Law and Society at St Mary's University in Twickenham. He will explore with you the topic of how management benefits from decision-making based on customer insight. I've known Robin's family for a really long time, as well as working alongside him at St Mary's University. But it was only, it seems so long ago, as we were sitting in a friend's garden in the warm sunshine, such a long time ago, that we started to speak about the possibility of Robin actually delivering this webinar, which is really exciting. Robin is a council member of the Market Research Society, and co-founder and former vice chair of Customer Insights alongside Professor Merlin Stone of St Mary's University. Over the last 45 years, marketing and market research techniques have been developed in order to monitor brand success and customer satisfaction. In the late 1980s, it was realized that research was interesting, but it was not being used effectively. Customer insight, the comparison between management performance data, external market analysis, and customer satisfaction surveys, has improved the quality of communications. Marketing is all about understanding customer engagement and behavior. Robin's talk will help us to understand that decisions and propositions have been improved as a result of analysing customer insight. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Robin, who will share with you his vast knowledge and expertise with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. And yes, it has been quite a journey since we had that meeting in the garden. And the theme of journeys is actually going to be talked about through this lecture, because I'd like just to talk about the journey that the research industry has been on to actually generate customer insight as the new product of the sector. And strangely enough, I've actually been in that journey as well in terms of my progression. It all started with me when I was leaving school, and my housemaster at Eastbourne said to me, "You're terribly bad at maths, so I don't think you'll be a good stockbroker, but I'd like you to go into this new thing called marketing." And he just looked at me and to see what reaction I would give him. And I said, "The new thing sounds very interesting." And that was the start of my journey that progressed through graduating from my university, which is now Anglia Ruskin, with the Chartered Institute of Marketing qualification, and a career in market research agencies, marketing consultancies, which included my own when I was a chartered marketer, and teaching businesses how to use market research and interpret it. And it was during that journey that I realized that there was a lot more to the interpretation process. And in one of the books that I had published, actually with the Institute of Management in its business growth series with Pittman in 1994, using research to grow your business, which is now out of print. But I pick up the elements in my book, The Effective Use of Market Research. I started to think about the action after research. and started to work with management to understand how to interpret research carefully. And our industry, actually the market research industry, started off as a cottage industry. And the CMI women's events team would be very interested to know that the growth of the industry was particularly from the contribution from women. Most of the fieldwork operations that were set up to forge the way for personal interviewing were actually created by wives of police officers. And those wives have really set the focus for the industry as it is now today. Personal interviewing still goes on. And of course, we have a lot of online interviews now. But personal interviewing still underpins the reputation of this industry. So moving on, I started to think about how to make a professional contribution. And in the Market Research Society, when I was vice chairman, we started to develop an MRS certificate and diploma and allow the industry to be as qualified as the management sector. And then I moved into the training sector, running into a number of different scenarios for developing marketing academies. And I've actually worked with the World's Market Research Group, WPP. I'm very happy to say that our partnership with the Chartered Management Institute is growing and growing. And we are very proud to be able to provide our students with the benefit of graduating with a management qualification. We've got a cohort of students who will graduate next summer with the CMI qualification. So in this slide, I'm going to start to talk about how managers need to set, plan, and monitor business and marketing strategies. And it's important to lay this ground so that we understand how management benefits from decision-making based on customer insight. Marketing today, and particularly as a result of the pandemic, is all about understanding customer behavior and customer engagement. And if we can keep those two things to the forefront of our mind, then I think you'll understand the sequence of the journey I'm about to take you through. Market research has laid the foundations for major brands to help them to communicate to us in the hope that we become loyal customers. And today, customer and consumer feedback is all about checking on satisfaction. And the tools such as the Net Promoter Score, which measures how satisfied we are with a product or service and whether we will recommend a product or service, is responsible for why so many more managers actually engage with the market research process nowadays. But the problem is that a modern manager needs to refer to many data sources, not just refer to it, but interpret it and then develop it into customer insight. And if done well, there are many benefits to this process. So let's look at the next slide and let's just go back to basics, because one of the problems with the word insight is that it's used in many different contexts and sometimes abused. And so let's just check in with the traditional agreed definitions. Customer insight or consumer insight is an interpretation of trends in human behaviors. So relating to my point about customer behavior and customer engagement. And it aims to increase the effectiveness of a product or service for customers or consumers and increase sales for the financial benefit of those providing the product or service. So there is a definite link to being a good management tool. But a manager has got to analyze data to better understand customers or consumers, to help make better decisions and decide what to sell. And these decisions result in campaigns and strategies becoming more effective and more efficient, resulting in increased profitability. Next slide, please. Customer insight has evolved from market research, marketing research, customer research, consumer research, a total marketing information system, and marketing analytics. And quite frankly, those of you that are marketers as well as good managers will recognize this is the total marketing information system, which I'd love to discuss today, but we don't have time. So maybe that's the subject of another day. The important thing a manager needs to know is that all of that source of information needs to be analyzed carefully, needs to be planned and used in a systematic manner. And in my book, The Effective Use of Market Research, I actually make a comment that if it's not planned, it's not effective. And research that confirms prejudices are a waste of money. So let's move on to see how we can do this. My mantra is that none of this works unless a business strategy is developed. And a strategy tells managers where and how value will be created and captured, provided customer-focused plans are developed. And here I've introduced a very important word, which is the essence of analyzing data and looking for insight, which is value. We've got to examine in this journey how it's evaluated. Now, most businesses also have a good mission statement to define a company's purpose. The purpose of the mission statement is to communicate why the company exists. It's a combination of understanding what a company does and how and why it does it. But a good mission statement, and indeed I can think of lots of companies that have good mission statements and lots that do not, a good mission statement expresses the values that are important to the various stakeholders inside and outside the business. And this is why customer insight has emerged to help a business relate to customer or consumer values. So let's look at what are values, just to check in with what I'm thinking about in terms of things that we need to evaluate. And I'll comment on the first three. All of these are company values, which are factors that a company deem as important, and they include concepts such as equality. And I view that in my world as inclusive marketing and intercultural dimensions in marketing, which is the focus for management and marketing today. Honesty, and I have the pleasure this semester of working with my colleague, Professor Karen Sanders, in a new module called Ethics in Communications and Marketing, because it's increasingly important that we provide products ethically. And education. We have to use the information that we collect to educate and then develop communications. And all of that really underpins what the value creation is all about. And of course, there are other factors as well, which I have shown in the slide. Also, I should mention that all of this matters in relation to the wording of a mission statement. And let me just refer to the Chartered Management Institute's vision and mission, because they are carefully worded in relation to the communication. The CMI vision is better led and managed organizations. Its mission is increase the number and standard of professionally qualified managers. So it's a very tight statement, but it reflects the values of the organization, which relate to you as members of the organization. So now let's move on to the next slide and look at our famous social media platform, because it's really a very good example of how it communicates its values very succinctly. Facebook's values are to give the people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. Now, we probably have seen that statement quite often and didn't really think about it in detail. But when we look at that, it's very clear that it's relating to our values in relation to using that social media platform. It's succinct, it's clear, it's reassuring, and its communication in being reassuring helps us to be loyal customers. If we can move on to the next slide. If we look at Facebook's values in a little more detail, they actually focus on impact. They move fast. Facebook moves fast, it's bold, it's open. It builds social value. So it's really important to think about the wording of the data that you analyze and how you express it in communications. So let me go on to explain this in a little bit more detail and then show you some examples. It's part of managers and marketing managers' roles in a business to build values into the marketing and communications of a company. I would like you to think about values in this way. They are regarded as morally correct. They're regarded as virtuous. They're also regarded as organizing principles to provide guidance and security. And this is so important nowadays because as a result of this, there is regulation that helps us with guiding principles in our responsibilities as managers in businesses. We all have to function under the guidelines of the General Data Protection Regulation and the principles that are written into that regulation for us as managers to respond to. And as a professional market researcher, the Market Research Society has a code of conduct for market research, which I am responsible for actually implementing as part of my fellowship. And I'm proud to do so and have been all my life. Values are actionable. They relate to objects, ideas, issues, and all actionable activities which create patterns of activity which are based on various values. So we can move on to what is important is really, in the next slide, to have a focus. A manager should really focus on three values. Action. It should be planned. My suggestion always relates to the planning cycle because of the cycle that exists in marketing. Most data is meaningful if it's planned over, if it's analyzed over a 3-year period, and it identifies a trend. Most marketing plans are meaningful if they're planned over a 3-year period to meet the challenges that are defined in those trends. It's important to plan and communicate the actions based on the values of your organization. It's also important to concentrate on the important values. What are the important values in delivering products or services related to your core values, which you have actually stated in your mission and your vision? And the point about values organizing principles, you need to think of values as organizing the principles to plan your business strategies, your marketing strategies, and your communication strategies. So, next slide, managers have a role in developing a business strategy. And today, and I certainly did not see this when I first came in to the industry years ago, but today there is a role to use a lot of data. And that is the important message today, that there is the increasing engagement with data because we cannot take our decisions without referring to customer or consumer data and how customers are appreciating or not appreciating the values of our company, and what we then have to do about it through improved communications. Managers have to look at data, look at what customers want, look at what they don't like, and provide advice on the way forward through a business strategy and a marketing strategy in the knowledge of market trends, and of course, in the knowledge of competitor activities. And we shouldn't forget the importance of competitor information in defining and developing insight. We always want to have the benefit of differentiation. So if we can move on to the next slide, I'm going to link the development of a business strategy based on balanced decisions. If you base them on balanced decisions, you can link them with the vision of a company, and then use that link to develop communications that communicate the values in the language of what consumers and customers think to develop propositions, whether product propositions or communications propositions. And you'll all be familiar with this checklist that you probably use in your meetings in your own businesses. You need to state and review your company and its objectives. You need to assess the value delivery process through research. You need to assess customer perceived value through research. And you need to adopt a strategic planning process. And the result of all this nowadays is to develop a national or increasingly a global marketing plan. So let me now just link this a little bit more on the next slide with some comments I've made already and what we've seen already. A mission gives a focus to internal and external stakeholders. It sparks ideas and drives action for our customers. It helps to shape the culture of our company, and it helps to establish consistency. And that's very important in management decision making, that we are consistent. Whilst missions are about what the company is, visions are about future corporate goals. And they may be vague or they may be precise, but they all give a sense of purpose. And if you look at the Facebook values again, they do give us a sense of purpose. And that is really why it has been such a successful brand. So moving on to the next slide, let's now review some examples of how customer insight is used effectively. And I always, with my colleagues, jump to this wonderful example that Nike has achieved in their connection of their mission through customer insight. And if you could just move the slide so the rest of the words come up, please. The whole message that you hear in the video, and you will be able to look at this video once I finish talking later, because I've given you the link. It's all about the communication of bringing inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And in the video, it all talks about performance, authenticity, innovation, and sustainability. And right through all the messages that Nike communicates, those 4 values that it is proud of are communicated through their communications. So how do we do this? How can you actually apply this? If we move on to the next slide, I've actually given you some examples of how we actually interpret information, interpret data, and turn it into the right sort of insight. Oil companies, for example, in terms of the product, they sell fuels. But in terms of the market definition, they supply energy. So there are 2 articulations of the product and the service and the whole mission of the company in terms of what it supplies and what it does. The same goes for cosmetics. We sell cosmetics, we sell beauty. Utilities, we sell electricity, we supply energy. Automobiles, we sell automobiles, we supply high performance automobiles. And all I'm really demonstrating there is that we have to create the right sort of communication which makes sense to the customer or the consumer that the values are being communicated. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Because I'd like to review the need for core competencies to be used. Businesses should nurture their resources and competencies that make up the essence of a business. And I always say there are three characteristics to core competencies. Understanding the source of competitive advantage that your product or service has, and that is articulated in your mission, to make sure that it contributes to the customer's perceived value. In a sense, it's your differentiation in the marketplace and how you provide your product or service in a different way. And it's how you develop your value propositions. The second also relates to its application in a wide variety of markets. Whatever your insight, it must be transferable or it must be applied in different languages. And of course, if you've got a source of competitive advantage, you want to make sure that your competitors can't imitate your products. So you want to actually say something and deliver something unique. So let's move on to the last two slides of the principles of what I'm talking about before I show us some more examples and take some questions from you. The process is to check the three key issues that I think managers deal with today. Value exploration. That's how any of us can use our market research, whether it's ad hoc research or it's panel research, which is continuous research, and trend panel data, which identifies new customer perceived value opportunities, which provide information on the opportunities that we can go for. And even as we come out of the pandemic, we are in that situation, as I'll comment again a little later. Value creation, how a company can create more promising new customer perceived value offerings with new ideas that need to be researched further through what we now talk more about as the test and learn process. And indeed, there are major global companies at the moment engaging in lots of test and learn activities to identify how our buying behavior has changed as a result of the pandemic and what it means for our intentions for being a loyal customer to our favorite brands in the future. So that is a process which has been developing all over the last 40 years and now is becoming depended on for management decision making. And then there is the value delivery. How can we understand consumer and customer needs and turn those needs into our understanding of the products and services that they want to buy and deliver new value propositions. And those propositions need to be communicated with succinct sentences, with succinct straplines, with succinct statements, which communicate to the customers very carefully. And on the next slide, I actually want to remind everybody that the aim of a business is to engage with target customer markets and create strong relationships. And for all of you, you've got the option of researching your consumer or customer market, any business-to-business markets that you engage in, or if you're a business-to-business supplier, it's the main focus of your market research. How you ought to research your intermediaries, your wholesalers, your retailers' markets, so that you understand better the decisions that they're taking. And of course, if you provide products and services to governments or non-government organizations, national government organizations, or you market products internationally, you need to actually do your research in the markets that you actually sell your products. So moving on, I want to actually just bring together my comments and bring to life what customer insight is all about. And I've chosen just to summarize based on the well-known examples that provide us with an understanding of what customer insight is all about. Here we have a product. It's a product that many people use. Many of you probably use it. As a matter of fact, I don't, because I'm allergic to it. And so I can actually review this product with a degree of objectivity. What did this product do? It carried out extensive research amongst its customers, its potential customers, and understood that there was a problem with the product. And if we go to the next slide, I quote two quotations from their key customer research, which tells us everything about the value that we have on this product. As the source is thick, it means that this product must be real, must be with real tomatoes in the source. But there's an underlying value there, which is a problem, which is that it might be a natural product, but it's difficult to use. And it was difficult to get out of a glass bottle. And comments were made in the research, such as getting the sauce onto my plate can be a challenge and frustrating and messy. So it all became not just about the product, but the packaging of the product. And of course, the organization, Heinz, developed such an innovative solution by putting the product in a plastic container, and then gave us the benefit of being able to use the product more easily, but more importantly, gave amusement to our children because of the rude noise that the actual packaging makes when the product comes out. But actually, that's an important value. If it's a product that our children really want, we're going to buy that product. We're going to be loyal to that product. And that's something I think Heinz understands in terms of its customer insight. The next most famous product on the next slide is, of course, Starbucks. And their insight, if we can have the next slide up, please. In a world in which we all have busy lives, consumers need an opportunity to find a place to relax and have a break. Yes, Starbucks coffee was unique from the blend that was created in Seattle. Yes, we all liked that coffee because it has a unique taste and it's different from the coffee that other outlets actually supply. But it's actually what Starbucks created, the insight that they created by creating the ambience of their stores and a place that we want to go to have that coffee. So they understood there was much more than just drinking the coffee. It was actually how to drink the coffee and what it meant for our pleasure. And I just want to produce one business-to-business example on the next slide, which, and my favorite is Virgin Media Business, and Virgin Travel. And the one from the travel information is, I prefer a traveling experience which is door to door. Travel can be tiring and stressful, and it's essential that I arrive at my destination ready to roll. Ready to roll indicates that there is a value to the travel experience. I actually have only travelled on Virgin once in my life, and it was a benefit in terms of the relaxing door-to-door experience and ensuring that I could be ready to roll. So if we go on to the next slide, I want to actually thank you for listening to what I've covered in this lecture in terms of how management benefits from decision-making based on customer insight. I've given you the process that I believe ensures that you develop insight. You have to have a business strategy, you have to have a marketing strategy, a communication strategy, and you have to build all of those now based on analyzing data. And you might have that data in the company, you might have that data outside the company, but all of it helps to understand the value that customers place on a product or service and the type of communication that you've got to develop with your customer or your consumer. So customer insight is all about satisfying the customer and the consumer and communicating to the customer or consumer very carefully. I'm going to stop now because I know there are quite a lot of questions, and I'm going to hand back to Joe, who will coordinate this part of the session.
Great. Thanks very much, Robin. That was great. And as I said to everybody before, full of really useful information. So thank you very much. But I do wonder, what will Heinz do next? Because can they continue to have plastic bottles, or do they have to go back to glass ones? So that's my thought for the day. But going on to some of the many questions that have come up, I'll read you the first one, Robin, if I may. How do you best encourage constructive feedback? Often negative feedback can be terse and lacking detail. How do you best encourage customers to give more detail and assure them that you are listening and responding when appropriate?
Okay, thank you, Joe. The answer to that question is to do with the way that a market research project is designed. You have to ask the question positively and negatively. So you have to ask your customers, what do you like about our products and services? What do you dislike about our products and services? So you get the customer or the consumer to consider both sides of their engagement. Customer behavior and engagement, again, are the key elements of marketing. And so you get the feedback on both sides of their engagement, the positive and negative, and then you analyze it carefully. And it's very tempting often just to go for the negative. I remember when the Sports and Leisure Club that I'm a member of decided that the board decided they wanted to have a complaints card, and they designed it, and it was put all around the club, and it was designed to collect complaints. So I went to the board and said, I'm sorry, can we change this to a comments card? And can we have a question there? What are we doing well in delivering our services to you? And what are we doing badly? And the board then got flooded with data. And they were sinking with data because it changed the whole process.
Next question then, Robin. What advice would you give to someone starting out in the marketing industry? Today,
the marketing industry is very, very sophisticated. And of course, I haven't said a lot about it, but one of the elements of our marketing information system today are the marketing analytics that are generated automatically from online delivery, from our websites, from our email activity, or Google activity, whatever. And therefore we've got a wealth of data to analyze. The issue is that we've got to be better at analyzing, better at interpreting, and then better at using and turning the data into insight. And quite frankly, the Chartered Management Institute, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, the Market Research Society, all have tremendous qualification programs that help people to actually learn these skills, but more importantly, to apply these skills. And therefore, if you're starting out in marketing today, you need to actually engage with the CMI, CIM, and MRS. And then I think you would do very well.
Lovely, thank you. And now something I think that's really very current, not that the others weren't, but how about this one? How do we monitor success of new products in this COVID-19 era?
Okay, well, now this is quite a long answer because of the situation that we're in. Because we get put into the lockdown, we come out of lockdown, it changes our behavior and our engagement. And therefore, in lockdown, if we are buying more products online and the organizations that are actually selling those products to us are becoming much more sophisticated in delivering them online, which they are, then it relates to how our behavior is changing, because we become much more positive. We become more positive to actually ordering more products. And so there's actually a testing and learning process going on in the interpretation of the data and how organizations then communicate to us. And certainly, as we came out of the first lockdown, I don't know if you noticed, but all the advertising on television was geared to our changing behavior as a result of our purchasing patterns. And I was very pleased to see that, because I think that's the major benefit of advertising, which is it communicates the benefits of the engagement. However, the test and learn process is fundamental to the launch of new products and services. And there are many organizations investing in the test and learn process. And that means that, for example, they are doing it online. There are still many organizations, when we're not in lockdown, doing it through personal research activities. And the Market Research Society, for example, has produced guidelines on how market research is done under COVID regulations and COVID guidelines. So it's something that is in the background there. I suppose I have to say it is the domain of major organizations, but any company can think through how it can actually put together a group of its customers and check on how satisfied they are with the current way that the products and services are delivered. But test and learn requires the testing of ideas. And a company has got to recognize that as we go through this pandemic and come out into our new normal, we have got to have tested out a number of ideas that are likely to be attract our customers and keep our customers loyal if we communicate properly. And therefore, the test and learn process, I hope, will be adopted by many more organizations so that we can actually make sure that we deliver what customers want. And one of the changes that is occurring in marketing through the development of inclusive marketing and the development of marketing based on different cultural dimensions is that companies are going to get better at focusing on the customer groups they have and the needs of those groups, because those needs differ in different parts of the world. So we're in a transition where more information is going to be dependent on anyway, and it's going to be quite exciting to see how it develops over the next couple of years.
Thank you. And Robin, another question that's come in that's really very linked to that one is, yes, we've got COVID. Yes, we've just left the European Union. So how can we assess customer insight quickly in order to respond to market change?
Assessing something quickly depends on the amount of information that is made available to us. And quite frankly, the secondary research process over the last 5 years has grown so much from the benefit of better use of the internet, the better use of Googling, the better use of the release of information. And as a result of it, companies are better at publishing reports, publishing newsletters, publishing articles. And quite frankly, if you are not monitoring all of this process, then you're not in a position to monitor the change in the fast changing landscape. And if I could just speak for myself, obviously marketing, market research, PR, advertising, all of the elements of marketing nowadays are changing fast. And I keep myself up to date by monitoring all of the organizations that publish reports, the research organizations, the management consultancies, the government organizations, just to check if there is new information which tells us something on the changing business landscape. So we have to be good secondary data researchers, but that means being good internet searchers. And some people are and some people are not, and it takes time to develop. And as I actually advise our students, it's a technique that takes time to develop. And at any time that you start on the process, you need to actually allocate a couple of hours each time you do it to make sure that you're doing it thoroughly. And it's very much a repetitive process. As we come out of the pandemic, things are going to change fast, and therefore it means doing it on a regular basis. And I've actually planned to do that myself, and therefore I recommend that everybody should do that as well.
Lovely, thank you. Now, here's a thorny one for you, Robin. How do you engage stakeholders who don't want to interact?
Now this is a very interesting discussion that has been discussed for many, many years in terms of the effectiveness of market research and how to get a response. Well, we recognize that customers or stakeholders have the choice to respond or not in market research. And we recognize that therefore when you do a research project, there is likely to be a proportion of the stakeholders who won't respond. And in consumer markets, for example, depending on the product or service that is provided, that will be anything between 25% up to 40% of people that won't respond. Therefore, you have to calculate so many more people to interview, so many more links that you hope will get clicked if you're doing it online, so that you get response. Response, of course, is influenced by incentives. There's no question of that. And in our fast-changing landscape nowadays, it's less likely to be offered an incentive to stimulate response. But we have learned how to live with it. And there are questioning techniques in market research that give us a lot of feedback on what is non-response. If something is not important or unimportant to someone, then it gives us an understanding of what proportion of a market are going to be really difficult to communicate with. And all markets have that. Business to business markets have that, because particularly business to business markets, where it's much more difficult to communicate with customers, you have to therefore go back to the core values, as I've been saying throughout this session, and communicate those very carefully. But that is really the issue to do with stakeholder response.
Lovely, thank you. And again, linked to that, and another challenge for you, how can you use insight data to engage your staff?
Now this is really interesting, because over the last, I would say, 5 to 8 years, there have been more organizations engaging in this. It all focuses on balanced decision making and balanced strategies. And for those of you that are familiar with that discipline, it's based on the balanced scorecard technique. But companies are actually adopting this much more nowadays because of what it provides. It gives the opportunity to engage with customers. It gives you the opportunity to engage with shareholders. It gives you the opportunity to engage with the people within the business. And it gives you an opportunity to engage with all types of stakeholders. Now, I'm saying that if you actually get the communication right, you then have to engage with your people within the business. And there are many organizations that talk about getting their employees to live the brand. And it's that sort of engagement that is going on, that a customer insight information that is collected both by the customer insight department and the market research department is presented back to the whole organization so that they can understand what are the key values that customers appreciate. They can understand their own role in delivering those values and whether their own work is appreciated or not. And so there is much more communication within an organization to get the organization's employees engaged with the customer. And again, right at the beginning, I said all of this is about two things: behavior and engagement. And I think all the way through my answers so far, I've actually been illustrating those 2 points again.
Absolutely. Great. Lovely. Well, thank you very, very much, Robin. Wow. Plenty to think about there, and we've all learned a lot. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. So back to you then, Mel.
Brilliant. Thank you for today. So that's it for today's session, and thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you to Joe and Robin for your insights and expertise. If you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat box, as well as in the description below. You can find thousands of exclusive practical development resources and much more. If you're not yet subscribed, why not join our community via the link in the description to gain full access to our Management Direct portal. You can also sign up to our free CMI's newsletter. So thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.